Beauty. I'm Martine, the new business director at Circus Street, and I'm here with Nicole. Circus Street has long-standing relationships with a number of different brands, including those in the food and beverage space. We work with our clients to build digital capabilities at scale throughout their entire organizations, and we do so by creating learning pathways that are aligned to business objectives of our clients. So I know that we're the only thing standing between you guys and happy hour and dinner. Maybe tomorrow we will all be calling Doug, asking for sweat patches. But before we get there, warm welcome to Nicole, head of new ventures at Kraft Heinz. I'm sure everyone here knows we had a panel with Kraft earlier. Kraft is one of the largest food and beverage companies in the world, and it is quite the trailblazer. Has been since inception. The merger, 2015, Kraft and Heinz came together, but Kraft actually originated here in Chicago back in the 1900s. So Kraft has really always been at the forefront of innovation. You guys have over 8 $1 billion brands, I believe. But yeah, so with that, I'd like to open the discussion by asking you to tell us a little bit more about your journey within Kraft Heinz, about your experience disrupting and keeping brands relevant amidst this growing complexity that we're seeing in the world today.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. So I have been actually with Kraft Heinz now for over 14 years, which is crazy to think about because it's been probably 3 to 4 different companies since I've started with the organization. And that's been amazing because I've had the opportunity to see it through a lot of change and also the opportunity to work on so many different amazing iconic brands. But there's been a lot of different various types of challenges as it comes to kind of disrupting and innovating within each of them. So I spent several years working on the Heinz business, which is a 150-year-old brand, an iconic brand, a beloved brand. But the challenge that I was working through when I was leading that brand was, okay, it's a brand that has massive share. It's by far the market leader, over 70% share within the category. It's in a category that has over 90 points of household penetration, so it's basically in every single home in America. How do you continue to grow that brand, prevent it from getting disrupted, and also grow the category when it's already so highly penetrated? And really what we had identified as an opportunity was we needed to become more relevant in consumers' lives. We needed to be able to become a part of culture and really drive conversation rather than sort of being a passive bystander, really becoming a more active part of consumers' lives and creating both content and entertainment that they would want to engage in. And so in my time there, I had the opportunity to spearhead a few different marketing campaigns that really sought to tap into culture. We launched Mayo Chuck, which was a huge kind of resounding sort of part of culture, viral part of culture over the course of almost the span of a year, and that was rooted in actually taking a viral tweet from the UK about conversation that was happening there and then tweeting it in the US and basically committing to launching that product if we got enough people around it. And it was such a polarizing debate that ultimately people voted to bring it to market. We launched it 4 months later, and now it is a huge line that has extended to multiple other flavors within the category. We had the opportunity to work on campaigns where we were actually bringing, for example, the Mad Men TV show where we were actually, there was a Don Draper scene where he's presenting a Heinz ad, and we actually brought that to life in the real world, and that got international acclaim and attention. And so it was things like that where it was kind of tapping into things that we knew consumers were interested in, that they wanted to talk about, but entering it in a way that was driving credibility. It was a way that our brand could credibly engage with consumers. Ended up driving record market share and NSV for the brand at a time where it was already quite a challenge to do that when we already had such a significant standing in consumers' lives. So that was one way, kind of how do we actually renovate and invigorate a 150-year-old brand. I also had the opportunity to work on a white space innovation role within our refrigerated category. And the challenge there was really looking at how do you take a refrigerated, particularly and specifically our refrigerated desserts business, which if anyone years ago had kind of walked the refrigerated desserts aisle, it's sort of, it's like tapioca and Jello pudding cups, and it's not necessarily very exciting. But then when you go to the UK or you go anywhere in Europe, you have this like massive 10 feet of amazing indulgent desserts. And so we identified an opportunity to really transform the aisle here in the US, but not necessarily through brands that currently existed there today that we owned. And so we recognized that we actually needed to bring our Philadelphia brand into the dessert set to be able to deliver this type of like indulgent innovation and products. And then we also partnered with the brand Hershey's to bring a lot of those other types of products that could really deliver on that consumer need to drive an additional 2 feet of shelf space within retail. And then that brings me to my current role. My current role is actually quite different from anything I've done in the past. It's actually a newly formed role within our North American growth office, which is to lead our new ventures team. And our new ventures team is specifically responsible for opening new frontiers of growth through M&A joint ventures and new partnerships. And it's also responsible for incubating new acquisitions that we've made as a company. So one of those has actually been, it's called Just Spices. It's actually a D2C-led spice blend company that is doing quite well within Europe, that we're actually looking to successfully enter into the US marketplace. And so my team's role is to give them tools, resources, and knowledge to be able to successfully grow as a business here in the US. So all sorts of challenges within a company that's been around for so long, but also across various aspects of it. How do we reinvigorate long-standing brands, and then also how do we create and forge new frontiers?
I'd imagine with a brand that's 150 years old, you're going through a massive transformation agenda right now. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I would say even as a company, so our company as a whole is going through a transformation. You mentioned the Kraft Heinz merger back in 2015. It's probably no surprise there hasn't been the best positive press about Kraft Heinz post that merger, right? Because there was a ton of focus on cost cutting and efficiencies and not as much focus on growth. And so what that led to was declining sales, declining share. And with our new CEO coming on in 2019, Miguel, and our new North American zone president coming on shortly thereafter, one of the first things that we did was we changed the way that we were looking at the categories. So not just about what temperature state and what brand it was, so not thinking about it in context of shelf-stable meals or frozen entrees, but thinking about it in consumer-based platforms. So what's the day part, what's the occasion that the consumer is actually looking for during this time when they're consuming these brands, and how can we reorganize the brands in that way? And it was also about growing our growth office and really putting the investment resources and tools into growing and driving sales and share. And so that led to the creation of groups within our organization that are dedicated to disruptive innovation, that are dedicated to digital products, that are dedicated to omni-channel. So putting that focus has really transformed the company's way of thinking and organized the company's way of thinking to actually drive growth. And we're already seeing the benefits of that transformation now.
So you mentioned earlier some of these long-standing brands and that you've engaged with new brands like Philadelphia and Hershey's. So what are some of those strategies for innovation in launching new brands versus the innovation with those long-standing favorite brands among consumers? Like, I'm one of them. I walk into the grocery store, I need ketchup. I'm just grabbing Heinz when I'm not even looking at anything else. So I already have that brand loyalty, but what are you doing for those new brands and for those new innovations?
Yeah, so I think for existing brands, right, it's kind of, you have to be innovative across all aspects of the marketing mix. So it's not only about, innovating and renovating, it's about, how are you, do you have the right assortment? Are you in the right channels? Do you have the right product within those channels? For completely new to this world products that we actually have as part of the disruption team that has been newly created earlier this year, we're really focusing on developing brand agnostic solution. So it's first about understanding what's the consumer problem to solve, and then the brand sort of comes later. It's like, what's the solution, and then what is the brand that can actually drive that forward, comes later in the innovation cycle. And we have those kind of consumer problems looking to be solved by what we call agile pods. And so it's actually groups and small teams that are 100% dedicated to solving that particular consumer problem. And so by kind of bringing them out of the business unit and allowing them to really 100% focus on being able to deliver that solution, that has allowed us to now be able to focus on, for brand teams, being able to grow the brands, for areas where we might not have a brand that can actually drive that solution, how can we get teams 100% focused and dedicating to doing that?
That kind of leads right into the next question on how have you looked at growing those established brands? How has that actually impacted how you're looking at growing these new and these innovative brands as well?
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest learnings working on, iconic but established brands has been, one, you obviously have to deeply understand and know your consumer. You need to anticipate their needs. You need to be able to continuously evolve your brand to grow with them. But it's also about understanding where your brand doesn't have a right to play. I know Danielle was talking about Miracle-Whip earlier. Miracle-Whip is an amazing brand, but is Miracle-Whip going to have a credible play in vegan plant-based mayonnaise? Probably not. That's why we acquired Primal Kitchen, right? That is a brand that's very health-focused, has the right to win, has the credibility to be able to deliver those types of solutions and tap into those opportunities. There's been a couple other examples most recently where we just went into a joint venture with Notco. And so Notco is a plant-based company that relies very heavily on AI technology, proprietary AI technology, to be able to rapidly prototype and get to the best tasting kind of plant-based solutions out there. And so we're marrying kind of our R&D expertise with their AI technology to be able to bring amazing tasting plant-based food to consumers at scale. And it's also an example is the Just Spices brand that I mentioned earlier. And we don't have a huge play in sort of D2C and being able to rapidly innovate and prototype on innovation. And they are a brand that has really effectively tapped into that in the European market. And we see a real opportunity for them to disrupt here in the US.
You have such a great story working on these timeless brands and now kind of going out there and looking for the cool, new, exciting stuff. Where do you see the largest areas of opportunity and what makes you the most excited? And kind of thinking about that, how do you think about growth in the context of both what you can learn from those age-old brands and also how you can disrupt the space by looking outside of the four walls of Kraft Heinz?
Yeah, I think there's so many things happening in the startup food space right now that is super exciting. And one of my favorite things about the job is actually being able to go out to, Expo West and trade shows and talk to entrepreneurs and startups and understand exactly what they're seeing out there that's really growing and is exciting. And I'd say for me, some of the areas and even the areas that as a company we're really excited about focusing against, and certainly global and international cuisine and being able to bring that to the US in a bigger way at scale with authenticity is one area of huge opportunity. There's so many amazing brands out there that are just getting their start, that are delivering like amazing, great tasting food, regionally inspired, and an authentic, beautiful brand story that I think is one area that's very, very exciting. How can we leverage technology to just make convenient food taste better and improve the quality, both from an ingredient standpoint, but also from a taste standpoint is also, I think, a really huge, exciting opportunity that we're seeing in this space. And then lastly, I think being able to get more out of your food for function, a lot of exciting stuff happening in that space as well. So, being able to kind of learn from the brands that we have today, understanding where there's areas where there might be gaps for us that can be addressed through new capabilities that are outside our four walls, but also I think recognizing how much opportunity and support that we can give those brands in turn. And so, it's a grind to own your own business. That's no surprise to anyone. And to be able to have a company like Kraft Heinz that can provide the tools, the resources, the infrastructure, the support to help them grow is also a really exciting place to be, because you realize that there are definitely ways that we can help each other grow in a really big way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Looking at your role and the new venture space as a whole, where do you see the opportunity there, and what excited you from that space?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try not to repeat myself too much from the last question, but it is just being able to get outside of the Kraft Heinz kind of four walls and just learn from people in this space that are seeing and doing really exciting, cool things, and taking that back and being like, okay, it doesn't have to take this long to put something out in front of a consumer. We don't have to test the death out of it. We don't have to be going through, rounds and rounds of conversations to get something perfect. Like, it's about kind of getting that MVP out there. It's about being able to test, learn, and optimize. It's about constantly transforming and not trying to let sort of perfect get in the way of progress. And you see that with so many brands. I mean, they have brands that have started can be something completely different probably a year later because they have the tenacity and the resilience to say, I know I have an amazing, spark of an idea. Maybe I didn't execute it perfectly right the first time. I'm going to go back. I'm going to improve it. And I'm going to get back out there. And so I think that degree of like not throwing things away when you might have a great idea that might not deliver exactly on expectations. How do you actually think about what do you learn from it and actually grow in turn, I think has been really cool to see and just very eye-opening and inspiring from companies that I've been able to meet and chat with.
Speaking about learning and growing and consumer expectations, we're joined in the room today by a lot of different industries, not just those in the food and beverage industry, but the food and beverage industry as a whole is growing and expanding so much. So thinking about disruption in the lens of your industry against the backdrop of increased consumer expectations over the past couple of years, what, in your opinion, are some of the biggest disruptors and challenges that food and bev is currently facing?
Oh man, yeah, I mean there's so many. I mean the one, and I hate to use probably a buzzword that's been going around probably too much for everyone, but inflation is one that's out there, right, challenging all of us. And I think what's actually somewhat exciting and invigorating about the challenges that inflation poses is it really requires you to actually be able to reprove your value proposition to consumers. Why are our products worth paying more for? But also, how are our products of value to things like eating out or making something from scratch and saving the time? And so I think it forces you to actually like rethink about what makes your brand valuable to consumers. But then even more on like the operational side of things, it's like how do you get creative about getting your product to the right place on time when there's supply chain challenges, when there are incredibly rising costs, things like that. So that's one big thing. But then I'd say disruption as a whole, I feel like the industry is getting disrupted in almost every facet, whether that be supply chain, whether that be brands, insurgent brands coming in. And so I think really that just requires sort of innovation and creative thinking in all aspects, even where you least expect it. It's certainly not just specific to launching a new product or renovating a new product, but it's across kind of all facets of the business.
So I know that you mentioned earlier about just spices. I was wondering if there's anything in the more broader food and beverage sector now that's like really exciting to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to you were talking about increased consumer expectations, and I was mentioning a little bit global exploration and cuisine, and authentic cuisine is just a really exciting space right now. So like just so many beautiful brands that are just so well executed. I'd say like Fly by Jing, Bashans, Amsam, like those are three just amazing, both delicious, authentic, design, package design, product is just amazing, and also seeing them be able to kind of get and create a foundation and a really loyal brand following through D2C is also like really exciting to see that they've been able to gain that type of traction without even necessarily someone passing them in a grocery store. So those are three that I'm very keen on.
So I know that we only have a couple more minutes left, so I'm going to try and sneak in one more question before we open up the floor. So when it comes to driving the agenda at Kraft Heinz, agile is really important amongst your teams. It's important for all of us. It's kind of a buzzword right now, especially Circus Street too. So keen to understand how well equipped Kraft Heinz is at the moment in getting ideas to market as quickly as possible, because I'd imagine, especially in your new role, that is super critical.
Yeah, and I would say, just to be completely candid, right, Kraft Heinz has not been known for that, or maybe an expert in that historically. We've kind of been plagued by the same things that plague any massive, large, CPG or company. But what we've actually done most recently as a part of our transformation is we have now created an agile disruptive innovation team, which has several pods that are actually just like deployed to go solve these consumer problems and come up with product solutions. And it's leveraging agile methodologies. So it's about, again, testing and learning, getting product in market faster so that you can then optimize and then reiterate and then get it out again, rather than trying to spend all of your time retesting and testing in a very kind of controlled environment that doesn't even necessarily reflect the challenges, what you might experience actually in the marketplace. And so I'd say we're getting there. I say we now have the infrastructure to be able to deliver on that ambition, to be more agile and to bring products to market sooner. But now it's kind of like, right, we gotta actually proof is in the pudding, gotta actually execute against that. And so excited to see what comes out of our organization. So keep a lookout over the course of the next year.
Is there anything that you can tell us about 2023 for us to get excited about? Any secrets?
I can't probably divulge any real secrets, but no, there's so many exciting things happening right now. Like NotCo, that joint venture was just announced, and there are so many exciting things in the pipeline for them for next year, which is just awesome. I think you'll see a lot more of that type of just, commitment to innovation from our company, and a lot of exciting things on just the brands too, like how are we going to reinvigorate and revitalize the brands that we have today. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Nicole? Everyone wants to go drink.
I don't want to stand between anyone and their glass of Pinot.
Yes.
So obviously a lot, new ventures, obviously a lot of food and beverage opportunities. What other sectors, like business sectors, or even themes, do you all look for when evaluating new potential ventures?
Yeah, I think it's all about also what are the enablers and the capabilities that are going to allow us to unleash and unlock the growth potential within the organization. So whether that be technology, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be food technology, but I'm thinking about, opportunities. We talked a lot about personalization at scale. What are the partners that could allow us to be able to unlock technology, manufacturing, channels, new channels, those are the areas where certainly beyond food, we're interested in, and my team is focused on being able to partner in a bigger way.
Any other questions?
You know what, I just a quick comment.
Yeah.
At the last event, the Molson Coors one, I think one of your colleagues was talking about Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Okay, yeah.
Kind of redoing that, and I think she was telling kind of a great story about Kraft Mac hacks and this type of thing. And there was some fun little thing that she brought up, and I was meaning to let you guys know. Maybe this is terrible to say that, and I really could start a trend on TikTok, because our dog absolutely adores Kraft macaroni and cheese. And the minute...
Pet food, okay, I will send that back to the team.
I gotta just tell you guys this, and the moment, this is maybe terrible, our dog is healthy, but the moment, when I begin to strain the macaroni, he must... The minute that I'm straining the macaroni,
it's a family pleaser, and your
he's
pets are
crying,
definitely
and then by the time I get it all mixed and giving it to my son, I admit I always...
Okay, so your son eats it too, that makes me feel
I gotta
better.
say, he goes crazy, and then I give him just a few pieces. So.
All right, I'll have to run that through our legal and our brand team.
For new ventures, I was gonna say some form of maybe there's something there with PetSmart or a dog mac and cheese.
Okay, I like it. Thank you. I'll put that one in the idea.
Right. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you
Questions?
to
Thank you.
Thanks.
everyone.
Andrea, Maddie, did we need to do any closing remarks? Awesome. Well, definitely thank you all for attending, for speaking, for sponsoring. We will have, we said all these panels and chats were recorded, so they're cleaned up and they'll be put on YouTube, so we'll definitely share all that out. You can share it with your teams. Definitely great conversations today, both with the panelists and fireside chat folks, but I saw there was tons of different conversations happening throughout, which is one of the main reasons why these events happen. So definitely thank you all for participating. So.
Thank you.
Otherwise, like if you have anything at your desk, just like garbage-wise, there's garbage in the back there out in the hallways. And, yeah, have fun. Stay warm. Go Bears.